Everybody, I would like to say a few words about my father, Sidney James Day, who was born in St Anne's Lane, Norwich, on the 3rd of July 1891. According to parish records, he was the youngest of 9 children and they lived in Bear Street. He was educated at St Mark's School, Lakenham, and was a member of the Church Lads Brigade at St Mark's Church. As my father died when I was only young, I did not get the chance to ask him about his exploits, and from what I can remember, he did not talk about it anyway, even to other family members, as he was a very unassuming man. So most of his actions I have discovered from old newspaper cuttings and more recently online. Although he amazingly survived the Great War, it left him in poor health. Otherwise, I think he would have lived into his late 80s. As most of his family did. I remember him as a very caring father who used to make me toys out of lino, wood, string, or anything else that could be used. And he would cook my meals after I got home from school, as my mother was at work. When he was well, he would take us on summer holidays to his sister's home in Bacton. Although a Norwich man, he enlisted into the Suffolk Regiment on the 14th of September 1914, as he was at the time working in Saxmundham. Serving in both the 9th and 11th battalions, he was involved in 3 campaigns, at Lewes, the Somme and Ypres, or as the Tommies called it, Wipers. It was at the Battle of Lewes in the summer of 1915 that he performed his first act of heroism, where he rescued his wounded officer from the battlefield under fire. But sadly, Lieutenant T.T. Stevens did not survive as he was hit by a sniper's bullet whilst being carried off by my father. In gratitude, Lieutenant Stevens' family gave him an inscribed silver cigarette case. Then it was at Mons in September 1916 that he was badly wounded, having been shot 3 times. He lay in a shell hole all day and then dragged himself 3 miles to a dressing station, and subsequently was brought back to England. Then, in early 1917, he rejoined his unit in the bitter fighting around Ypres and Passchendaele. It was during the battle at Malakoff Farm near Hargecourt that his brave actions on the 26th of August 1917 were recognised by the country's highest military award, the Victoria Cross. He wrote to his parents saying that they will be informed of great news which will make you the proudest parents in Norwich. It was presented to him by King George V on the 9th of January 1918. Returning to France, he was that year captured and spent the rest of the war as a prisoner of war. On the 11th of November 1920, he served as a member of the Guard of Honour at the burial in Westminster Abbey for the grave of the unknown warrior. In civilian life, he had a job with the Electric Light Company in Norwich, wiring people's homes for a new sort of power, electricity. But like many veterans, getting regular employment was difficult, and eventually he moved to Portsmouth in the 1930s, encouraged by a fellow VC, Norman Finch, a former Royal Marine who he met at a VC Association function. There he met and married my mother, where they ran a tea room in the arcade on Edinburgh Road, near the dockyard, but this was unfortunately destroyed in a bombing raid in 1941. He was later employed as a messenger in the dockyard, but in the 1950s had to retire through ill health and was in hospital for a long time with tuberculosis, possibly caused by his war service. I remember him being very ill in the last few years of his life, and my mum having to go out to work full time. He died in the Queen Alexandra Hospital on the 17th of July 1959 and is buried in Milton Cemetery. For many years, the late Mr. Ron Mace, together with others from this city, campaigned to have a plaque for my father placed in the redevelopment area of St Anne's Wharf. So you would have been delighted to know that this stone has been placed here at the City Hall. This is my proudest moment, to have this commemorative stone laid in honour of my father's valour in this lovely city of Norwich, his hometown. Thank you to everyone involved in arranging this event and to those who have attended today.